Hi, my friends. Today I want to present you a new story. Enjoy watching it.
The sun was setting over JFK as passengers hurried through the terminal, their faces a mix of excitement and fatigue. I, Helena Hart, stood at the gate, welcoming each one with a smile. It was a routine I had mastered over the years, yet today felt different. My eyes were drawn to an 8-year-old girl named Remy, clinging tightly to her father's hand. Her blonde hair fell in loose waves around her face, but it was her eyes that caught my attention. Large, blue, and filled with a haunting restlessness. "Welcome aboard," I greeted them, my gaze lingering on Remy. She looked up at me, her eyes pleading silently. Her father, a stern-looking man with a distracted air, barely acknowledged my presence as he tugged her along to their seats. As the plane began boarding, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Remy's agitation grew more evident as they settled into row 16. She fidgeted with her seatbelt, casting anxious glances around the cabin. Her father was already engrossed in his phone, oblivious to her distress. I made my way through the aisles, performing the usual pre-flight checks, but my mind kept drifting back to Remy. When I passed by their row, she looked at me again, her eyes now filled with something more: fear. I smiled gently at her, hoping to offer some reassurance. As the plane taxied down the runway, I began the safety demonstration. My heart pounded as I spoke, the feeling of unease growing stronger with each passing moment. I glanced over at Remy once more, catching her eyes just as she whispered something to her father. He responded with a terse nod, his eyes never leaving his screen. When the plane finally lifted off, I made a silent vow to keep an eye on Remy. Something about her situation didn't sit right with me, and I knew I had to find out more. As the plane stabilized at cruising altitude, I began my rounds, offering drinks and snacks to the passengers. I approached row 16 with a smile, but Remy's father dismissed me with a curt wave before I could even ask what they would like. "Can I get you anything?" I asked, directing my question to Remy instead. She hesitated, glancing at her father before responding in a low, urgent voice, "Water, please." I handed her a bottle of water, and as I did, she gently tugged on my sleeve. I crouched down to her level, my heart racing. "What is it, sweetie?" "I'm scared," she whispered, her eyes brimming with tears. "I don't want to be here." Before I could respond, her father noticed our interaction. He pulled Remy back into her seat with a cold, controlled voice. "Don't bother the flight attendant, Remy." I nodded and moved away, but the concern didn't leave me. I continued my rounds, but my mind was occupied with thoughts of the little girl in row 16. I had seen many children on flights before, but none had ever made me feel this way. I needed to understand what was happening. Later, as I passed by again, I noticed Remy making subtle hand signals, hiding them from her father. She looked at me with a sense of urgency, and I knew she was trying to communicate something important. My heart ached for her. During a break, I found Melissa, my colleague, and quickly explained the situation. "Melissa, I need your opinion on something. There's this girl, Remy, in row 16. She's trying to tell me something, but her father keeps shutting her down." Melissa frowned, her concern matching mine. "We need to figure out what's going on without alarming him." I nodded, feeling a sense of relief that I wasn't alone in this. Together, we devised a plan. I would keep an eye on Remy, while Melissa would distract her father if necessary. We had to be careful, but we were determined to help her. Returning to the aisle, I saw Remy's signals growing more intense and urgent. Determined to act, I grabbed a notepad and a pen, pretending to take drink orders. When I reached row 16, I quickly wrote a message. "Are you in danger?" and showed it to Remy, shielding it from her father with my body. She looked at the note, then at me, and gave a slight nod. A chill ran down my spine. This was serious. I continued walking through the aisle, watching from a distance. Remy started making hand signals again, this time more clearly. She was drawing letters in the air. It took me a few seconds, but I finally deciphered the word. "Help." My heart pounded as I realized the gravity of the situation. I went back to the galley and asked Melissa to cover for me for a few minutes. Then, I headed to the nearby restroom and waited for a moment when Remy could leave her seat without attracting her father's attention. After what felt like an eternity, Remy managed to slip away and met me in the restroom. Locked in the small space, she finally opened up. "My dad, he did something bad. I don't want to go with him." I'm scared, she confessed, her voice trembling. I hugged her, promising that she would be safe. Remy, I need more details to help you. What exactly did he do? With tears in her eyes, she explained, he took me without my mom's permission. He said we were moving somewhere else, and that I would never see her again. Please, don't let me go with him. My heart tightened as I listened to her. This was more serious than I had imagined. I knew we needed immediate help. Returning to the cabin, I discreetly informed the pilot about the situation. He contacted the authorities at our destination, arranging for the police to be waiting when we landed. We had a plan, but we needed to execute it perfectly to ensure Remy's safety. The plane continued its journey, each passing minute filled with tension. I kept a close watch on row 16, ensuring Remy's safety until we landed. Her father seemed oblivious, still engrossed in his phone, but I knew we had to be cautious. Midway through the flight, we encountered unexpected turbulence. The plane shook, causing passengers to grip their seats. Remy looked at me with wide, frightened eyes. I gave her a reassuring smile, trying to convey a sense of security. When the turbulence passed, I noticed Remy's father observing her more closely, as if he sensed something was wrong. I knew we had to act quickly to prevent him from becoming suspicious. I approached Melissa again, who was serving coffee at the back of the plane. We need a plan to get Remy away from her father as soon as we land, I whispered urgently. We can't wait for the police to get here. We need to move fast. Melissa thought for a moment before suggesting, we can use the disembarkation as a distraction. I'll make an announcement saying everyone needs to exit quickly due to a technical issue. That should scatter the passengers and give us a chance to separate Remy from him. I agreed, recognizing the effectiveness of the plan. Returning to the aisle, I kept a close eye on row 16, preparing for the moment of landing. I discreetly informed Remy of the plan. When we land, we need to leave quickly, okay? I'll take care of you, trust me. She nodded, her expression a mix of fear and hope. I returned to my station, anxiously awaiting the moment of landing. The plane touched down, and a wave of relief washed over me, followed by a surge of adrenaline. The plan was in motion. Melissa made the announcement and passengers began to disembark quickly, believing there was a technical issue. I moved swiftly to row 16, taking Remy by the hand. Come with me, I whispered, guiding her through the crowd. Her father, realizing what was happening, started to protest. But Melissa blocked his path, engaging him in conversation to buy us time. We reached the gate where the police were waiting. I handed Remy over to one of the officers, who quickly whisked her away to safety. Her father, now fully aware of the situation, tried to break free and follow us, but the police restrained him, explaining the seriousness of his actions. As the terminal erupted in chaos, I watched from a distance, my heart pounding. The authorities ensured Remy's father was taken into custody, while I returned to check on her. She clung to me, her small body trembling with fear and relief. You're safe now, Remy, I reassured her, holding her tightly. You're going to be okay. Moments later, a woman rushed into the room, her eyes filled with worry and desperation. Remy, she cried, running to her daughter. Remy let go of me and ran into her mother's arms, tears streaming down her face. Mom, she sobbed. I'm okay. Helena helped me. Her mother looked at me with infinite gratitude. Thank you, she said, her voice choked with emotion. You saved my daughter. I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and exhaustion. She's a very special girl. I'm glad I could help. As they hugged, I felt a deep sense of accomplishment. Despite the challenges, we had managed to bring Remy back to safety. As the chaos began to settle, I found myself back at the airport, the once bustling terminal now eerily quiet. Melissa stood beside me, her face a mirror of my exhaustion and relief. We exchanged a look, the weight of the day's events pressing heavily upon us. Helena, we did it, she said softly, placing a comforting hand on my shoulder. I nodded, the enormity of what had just happened sinking in. I just hope Remy will be okay. We made our way to a small room where the authorities were debriefing Remy and her mother. They needed our statements as well, and although I was tired, I knew it was important to share every detail. Inside, Remy sat with her mother, clutching a teddy bear one of the officers had given her. She looked up as we entered, a small, grateful smile on her face. "Hi, Helena," she whispered. I knelt down beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "How are you feeling, Remy?" "A bit scared still, but happier now that Mom is here," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. Her mother reached out and took my hand. "Thank you, Helena. I can't even begin to express how grateful I am." "You don't have to," I replied gently. "I'm just glad she's safe." The officers asked us to recount the events of the flight, and as I spoke, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Each detail was crucial in ensuring Remy's father would face justice. Melissa added her observations, and together, we painted a clear picture of the distress Remy had been in. After what felt like hours, the debriefing was over. The officers assured Remy's mother that she and her daughter would receive all the support they needed. As we left the room, I couldn't help but glance back at Remy, now wrapped safely in her mother's arms. The following days were a whirlwind of media attention and police reports. Melissa and I were hailed as heroes, but all I could think about was Remy. The little girl had captured my heart in a way I hadn't anticipated. One afternoon, about a week after the flight, I received a letter at my home. The handwriting was neat, and I recognized Remy's name immediately. I tore it open, my heart racing with anticipation. "Dear Helena, thank you for saving me. I was really scared, but you made me feel safe. Mom and I are doing better now. I'm going to a new school and making new friends. I wanted you to know that you are my hero. Love, Remy." Tears welled up in my eyes as I read the simple, heartfelt words. I placed the letter on my mantelpiece, a reminder of the difference one person can make in another's life. Months passed and life gradually returned to normal. One sunny afternoon, I received an unexpected call. It was from Remy's mother, inviting me to a small gathering they were having to celebrate Remy's birthday. I accepted without hesitation, eager to see how they were doing. When I arrived at their home, I was greeted by the warm, familiar faces of Remy and her mother. Remy ran to me, her eyes shining with joy. "Helena," she exclaimed, wrapping her arms around me in a tight hug. "Happy birthday, Remy," I said, holding her close. The party was a cheerful affair, filled with laughter and love. Remy introduced me to her new friends, proudly telling them about our adventure on the plane. Her mother and I shared stories and caught up, the bond we had formed during that tumultuous time evident in every word. As the sun began to set, Remy pulled me aside. "Helena, I have something for you," she said, her voice filled with excitement. She handed me a small, wrapped gift. Inside was a beautiful bracelet, adorned with tiny charms. "It's to remind you of our special friendship," she explained, her eyes brimming with emotion. I hugged her tightly, my heart full. "Thank you, Remy. I'll cherish it always." The experience with Remy had a profound impact on my life. I found myself more attuned to the needs of others, always ready to lend a helping hand. I continued my work as a flight attendant, but with a renewed sense of purpose and compassion. One day, as I was preparing for another flight, I received a call from an organization dedicated to helping children in distress. They had heard about my actions and wanted me to speak at one of their events. I accepted, knowing that sharing Remy's story could inspire others to act with courage and kindness. The event was a success, and as I stood on the stage, looking out at the audience, I felt a deep sense of fulfillment. I spoke about the importance of paying attention, of listening to the silent pleas for help that often go unnoticed. I shared how one moment of connection, one act of kindness, can change a life forever. Years later, Remy and I remained in touch. I watched her grow into a confident, happy young woman, her past no longer a shadow over her life. She often wrote to me, sharing her achievements and milestones. One day, I received an invitation to her high school graduation. I was honored and excited to be a part of this special occasion. As I sat in the audience, watching her receive her diploma, I couldn't help but feel a swell of pride. After the ceremony, Remy found me in the crowd. She was beaming, her eyes sparkling with joy. "Helena, I did it," she exclaimed, hugging me tightly. "You did, Remy. I'm so proud of you," I replied, my voice choked with emotion. As we stood there, surrounded by celebrating families and friends, I realized how far we had come. From that fateful flight to this moment, our lives have been intertwined in a way that was both unexpected and beautiful. Remy's journey was a testament to resilience, courage, and the unbreakable bond formed through compassion and kindness. And as I looked into her bright, hopeful eyes, I knew that no matter where life took us, we would always carry a piece of each other in our hearts.